So we're going to go through what total utility, marginal utility, and law of diminishing marginal utility are, and what utility is in general, and utility maximization. So law of diminishing marginal utility is that added satisfaction declines as the consumer requires additional units of given products. So like a good example is let's say you want to go to like McDonald's for an ice cream, right? You would go for one, but you would go for one and get a lot of benefit in terms of like taste from that, but getting two would be better. However, the increase in benefit from going from 1 to 2 will be less than 0 to 1. So you just need one really, and then you get a lot of benefit from the one. But if you get two, the benefit is a lot. The increase in benefit is a lot less. So that's the whole thing about law of diminishing marginal utility. So yeah, marginal utility is extra satisfaction from consuming one more unit. So that's what it's focused on. So this is the graph for it. So let's show this. So total utility would peak here, where you'll get the most utility at this spot between like it'll be about 5.5. That's most utility right here, where you'd have about 30 units of utility. So then, but the marginal utility would be decreasing over time, because the increase in utility from each additional unit will be less and less over time. So this would be like in the ice cream example. So like for one ice cream, you will have the highest marginal utility. Second ice cream will have a lower marginal utility. And then third ice cream with a marginal utility lower than before, and so on. So it'll keep on going like that. It'll just keep reducing. So it goes from 10 to 8 to 6 to 4 to 2 to 0 and then -2. So you want to be at this location. Like if you want to maximize your utility, you maximize it where marginal utility is equal to 0. So this is where maximized total utility is, when marginal utility is equal to 0. So if you want to maximize your total utility, it'll be when marginal utility is equal to 0. So so total utility is maximized at 30, and this is the case because marginal utility equals 0. So yeah, diminishing marginal utility provides a simple rationale for the law of demand, since successive units of a good yield smaller and smaller amounts of marginal utility. So the consumer will buy additional units of a product only if its price falls. So we assume a typical customer exhibits rational behavior, has clear-cut preferences, is subject to a budget constraint and responds to price changes. So utility maximization, this is don't worry too, like it won't be this complicated when we do the practice, but it's maximized when the marginal utility of product A divided by price of A equals marginal utility of product B divided by price of B. So in this case, so we'll use this chart here. So utility maximization at each step, spend where marginal utility divided by price is highest. So in general, if marginal utility divided by price is unequal, spending should be allocated away from the good where MU divided by dollars is low towards the good where MU divided by dollars is high. So you want to be spending where, so spend where the marginal utility per dollar spent is highest. This shows this. So this ensures that you get the highest utility or value. So you want to make sure that you spend where you can get the top utility possible. So that's very important. Substitution effect is the impact that a change in a product's price has on its relative expensiveness and consequently on the quantity demanded. So when the price of oranges fall, there's a substitution of now cheaper oranges. So then the income effect is the impact that a change in the price of a product has on the consumer's real income and consequently on the quantity demanded of that good. So increasing real income increases consumption of both apples and oranges. This shows why the demand curve is downward sloping. So consumer choice can be shown through new products. So in 2010, when the iPad was introduced, iPad in 2010 had a higher marginal utility per dollar spent than other products so that is why people bought it. So if you want to create a new product, make sure that the marginal utility per dollar spent on that product for consumers is higher than the competition. Inventing products requires this. So like, for example, Tesla would be a good example, would have had a high marginal utility per dollar spent for consumers when it was first introduced, because it had to be better than it had to be better than, because the marginal utility per dollar spent had to be better than the industry. Ford, Chevy, etc. GM, Fisker, etc. So can you think of another product that required a high marginal utility per dollar spent to compete? That's okay. You don't always have to have this, you could start a business, like this is not always true. Like if you wanted to create a new product, this might be true. Like, and not in all cases, like you could potentially start a business. Like there was this gentleman who started a business where he was making cookies and he just sold them. Like he started recently because he lost his job, and then he just started making cookies and then just selling them. And he's made so much money doing that. So you could do that. You don't necessarily have to have a high marginal utility per dollar spent to make a business. Like you could also resell products from AliExpress. So that could be a good business. Like this is not always true. This is just for like new products. I would just say this is more focused on products that are if you're an inventor. This is more inventor related. So don't get intimidated by this. This is more inventor related for people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerberg. So in those cases, so SpaceX rockets have a higher marginal utility per dollar spent than the competition. So Amazon has a higher marginal utility per dollar spent than the competition. Then Microsoft, like not necessarily anymore, but Microsoft had a higher marginal utility per dollar spent than the competition at the time. And then Meta, so Facebook, Instagram, had a higher marginal utility per dollar spent than the competition at the time. So when I talk about higher marginal utility per dollar spent, higher marginal utility per dollar spent means value for money. So it means like you get a higher amount of value for your dollars spent. So that's basically what it is. Like the value you get out of something, like what you get out of it. So I'm gonna show a video. It's on like it's more on other methods on how to start a business. But I will just pause this. That you have that as an option. So, opportunity cost and time. The theory of consumer choice can be generalized to account for the economic value of time. So, in this case, the airline companies take that into account because the opportunity, because executives pay more for airline tickets because airlines know that they make a fortune doing business all over the world. So that's why. And then average people get charged less because they are likely going on vacation and are not business. Pastries, okay, great. Pastries. Oh, so pastries here, and then target audience. What would you be your target audience for pastries? And feel free to write in If you come into the document, feel free to make changes. Like, yeah, feel free. Yeah. So what would be the target audience that makes most sense for pastries? So yeah, you could figure like for your target audience, you can figure out who likes pastries. Like you go to Statistics Canada or some stats website, and then figure out the types of people that like pastries if they're older or younger, what like what their um age is, what their income level is, what their education level is, like those types of things. Like look at that and then figure out how you would promote your product towards them. And then so then let's say it's millennials. Let's say I'll put in like let's say it's like 18 18 to 25-year olds, let's say, right? So then uh how would you market to 18 to 25-year olds? Like what would be the best way to market to 18 to 25-year olds? So I would say like Instagram would be a good one. Instagram videos and posts, let's say, and then maybe like creating a podcast on pastries, making a blog on pastries. Also, I would say TikTok shorts on pastries, YouTube shorts on pastries. So yeah, making like exciting videos on pastries, that's probably a good way. And then the I think like FOMO, fear of missing out would be a good thing. So making it seem like it's got only you only have a bit of time until it's like you only have a certain amount of time to do it. Also, herd mentality. So like if your friends are buying it, you should buy it too. It's the herd mentality. Uh, so those types of things would be great for that. So then helpful links. So like Instagram.com, TikTok.com, YouTube.com, Blogger.com. Yeah, so like those ones. Yeah, so then like Spotify.com too for your podcasts. And then explain how the marketing tactic and bias will influence your target market to buy your product. How do you think your marketing tactics would influence your target audience to buy your product? Okay, that's okay. So I think so marketing tactic. So Instagram and TikTok and YouTube would provide excitement and entertainment to your customers, thereby making them interested to purchase your product. You could use Spotify, YouTube, and a blog to educate your customers on the benefits of your product. You could build a reputation, build a good reputation through your podcast, blog, and social media, because people want to buy into a set of values, not just the product. So showing good values and good reputation would show that you are a good business to buy from. Your product still has to be good, but you can build a great reputation through these channels, because reputation and product quality are hand in hand important to building bases. So yeah, that's I wanted to go through that activity, but feel free to add anything. I posted on Blackboard, and I'll put the link back in the chat again, but feel free to add, and you could use this for your bonus assignment as well if you want. So yeah, I just wanted to go through that with everybody. So then, like, we'll go through the next activity. I'm just gonna bring it up here. So it's further on utility maximization. So in this case, this is a budget constraint for purchasing something. So like they can purchase anything on or below. So they can purchase anything on or below this line, but they cannot purchase anything to the right of the line because it's unaffordable. Yeah. So anything on the line and below the line is affordable. So then if the line goes out to the right, its income increases. So you can purchase more of each good. And then if the income line goes down, you purchase less of each good. And then if the line twists inward like this, the price of the good on the price of this good of B would double. So this is what happens if the price of B doubles. And then this is what happens if the price of A doubles. So in this case, the line twists, like the line changes slope if price changes, if prices change. Then the line shifts if income changes. So that's what happens there. So the line shifts rightward if income goes up. The line shifts leftward if income goes down. So indifference curves are downward sloping, indifference curves are convex to the origin. So this shows that so I'll show you why this is important. Indifference curves. You want to be here. So you want to be where the budget constraint meets the indifference curve. Is where you want to be. because this is most efficient. And you want to be in the middle because that's the highest equality region. So in this case, you're in the middle. So here we're in the middle. So we're efficient and equal. So this is where we want to be. So this is efficient and equal. But if we were like, if we were here, this would be efficient. So if we're here, if we're here, if we're here, this would be efficient, but not equal. Like not equality. So like there could be massive income inequality. Yeah. So we want to be in the middle. That's where we want to be. So yeah, here points Z and Y are but yield less total utility because they're in lower difference curves. So these are less equal. Y and Z are in less equal areas. So less equal, but still efficient. So like anything along this line is efficient, but there's some places that are more equal than others. So this one, this X is efficient and equal. Yeah. Then point W would entail more utility than X, but requires greater income than the amount represented by the budget line. So we would need more income. We would need more income to shift from X to W. So yeah, in this case, the price increase of B would cause the point to shift to here. So this is what happens in the price increase of B. So the price increase of B, which would change the slope of the budget line and reduce the utility. So yeah, reduce the utility. So utility is basically value. It's value from the product. The higher utility, the more value you get out of the product. Yeah. So they also call utility happiness. Happiness equals utility also. Yeah, pretty much. Like they're all the same. So value, happiness, utility. So an increase in a change in price is composed of two effects. The income effect is the impact of the change in the price on the consumer's real income, and the consequent effect on the quantity demanded. Substitution effect is the impact of the change in a product's prices on its relative expensiveness and consequently on the quantity demanded. So you can measure both effects. So the income effect is, so in this case, the income effect is the movement along the horizontal right there. So in this case, the income effect is this region, and the substitution effect is this region. So in that case, the substitution effect is the horizontal movement from X to Y, and the income effect is the horizontal movement from Y to Z. behavioral economics. So neoclassical economics show that we believe our decisions are rational, but it shows that we make systematic errors, and behavioral economics goes through that. So neoclassical economics goes through that people have stable preferences that are unaffected by context. People are eager and accurately calculate are accurate in calculations. People are good planners, possess plenty of willpower, and people are almost entirely selfish and self-interested. So that's what they believed in the beginning of economics. However, behavioral economics goes into more complicated ways of showing what humans do and think, and these aren't always true. And behavioral economics goes through that. This is like Adam Smith focused economics, where Adam Smith has a lot of good ideas, but a lot of the ideas are flawed. Like a lot of it is good, a lot of it's flawed, but a lot of it's overly simplistic, I find. And things like behavioral economics go through where you need to make it more complicated. So there's behavioral economics goes to the mental process behind decisions. So it goes through what goes on in the brain of people that determines their behavior instead of predicating behavior. So it goes through like the causes of why people behave the way they do. So the existence of irrationality leads behavioral economists to conclude that it may be possible to make people better off without providing additional options. So that's a big part of what they do. And so you need to have both. Like both are very important. So neoclassical economics is good for incentives. Using incentives for people does work. And then behavioral economics goes through like impulse buying at the supermarket, which would kind of evade incentives. So what you have to do is you have to use neoclassical economics in some cases and use behavioral economics in other cases, and then use them together. So if you just had neoclassical economics for everything, you'd be missing out on a lot of things. And then if you had behavioral economics for everything, you'd be missing out on incentives. So you need to have both, and then use them on a case-by-case basis, and you can use them together if that works best. So neoclassical economics for rationality, they talk about people are fundamentally rational and will adjust their choices and behaviors to best achieve their goals. Consequently, they will not make systematic errors. Well, for behavioral economics rationality, they believe that people are rational and make many errors that reduce their chance of achieving their goals. Some errors are regularly repeated systematic errors. So both are right in certain cases. Like for behavioral economics, that's right in some cases. Neoclassical economics is right in some cases. People are rational in a lot of cases. People are irrational in a lot of cases. You just have to do it by case basis. So sometimes you use neoclassical economics for rationality. Some other cases use behavioral economics for rationality. And then stability of preferences. People's preferences are completely stable and unaffected by context. So that's true in a lot of cases. In behavioral economics, stability of preferences, people's preferences are unstable and often inconsistent because they depend on context, framing effects. So that's true in a lot of cases as well. So some people, their preferences never change. And they're not affected by context. But then some other people, their preferences are unstable and inconsistent. So it's good to use both case by case basis. And capability for making mental calculations. People are eager and accurate calculators in neoclassical economics. That's true for a lot of people. And then behavioral economics, people are bad at math and avoid difficult computations if possible. That's true of a lot of other people. So yeah, you gotta just observe it in a case by case basis. So yeah, so you gotta just like I'd say that so engage the situation and determine if they are rational, if their preferences don't change, and if they are good at calculation. So gauge all of that, and then determine if you should use neoclassical or behavioral economics. Yeah. So like just gauge the situation, because it's kind of like you just need to ensure that you don't use the same strategy for each case. So yeah, gauge the situation, figure out if it's neoclassical or behavioral. So these charts are excellent. So ability to assess future options and possibilities. Neoclassical economics talks about how people are just as good at assessing future options as current options. Behavioral economics talks about people give insufficient weight to future events and outcomes. And strength of willpower, neoclassical economics goes through how people have no trouble resisting temptation. Behavioral economics goes through people lack sufficient willpower and often prey to temptation. And then degree of selfishness. Neoclassical economics, people are almost entirely self-interested and self-centered. Behavioral economics, people are often selfless and generous. So those are very different views there in terms of what they think about people's motivations. And then fairness, neoclassical economics, people do not care about fairness and only treat others well. Doing so will get them something they want. And then behavioral economics, many people care deeply about fairness and will often give to others, even when doing so will yield no personal benefits. So these are very different views of people, and you just have to determine it on a case by case basis. Like if you can observe if someone's very selfish, if you can tell that someone's very selfish, which you could potentially tell that um based on their behavior. If someone is entirely selfish and doesn't care about others, like doesn't care about others and doesn't want to support society, you can apply you could apply you could apply neoclassical economics to that situation. But if someone is completely selfless and generous to others, you could apply behavioral economics to that situation. So yeah, you need to just do it by case basis. So heuristics are energy savers. So the human brain is the most complex object in the universe. 100 billion neurons share 10,000 times as many connections. The brain evolved many low-energy mental shortcuts, riding a bicycle with steering heuristics, guesstimating ranks with recognition heuristics, and the implications of hardwired heuristics. So the human brain uses a large amount of heuristic shortcuts to process both visual and other types of information. So if you put your finger horizontally across the middle of the image, your brain's heuristic filtered interpretation will change. So if you put a finger horizontally across the image, do the boxes have two different colors, or or are they the same color? Try putting your finger horizontally across the middle of the image, in the middle, and then see if the two boxes have different colors. Do they have different colors? Yeah, I personally can't tell. Like I think they have the same color, but I could be incorrect. Yeah, me too. I see the same. Thanks, Ismail. I think Vivian, yes, yeah, I agree. I think it is the same. I agree. Thanks for participating, both of you. And then the brain processes light with a heuristic that assumes the light always comes from above. Under that assumption, anything that sticks out will have a shadow at the bottom, while anything as reassessed as a shadow on the top. So as a result, your brain interprets 5 of the 6 shaded circles as humps that stick out, while the bottom middle circles interpret as recess. See what happens when you turn the picture upside down. I'm surprised. So I'll try turning it upside down. Huh. So try turning the photo upside down and see what you see. I see something different, and I think you will too. It's a very interesting visual illusion. Tell me what you see, and I'll tell you what I see. Try turning it upside down. Trust me, you'll see something different. So when I did it, so okay, great, excellent. Oh, it does look the same. Okay, what I saw was I saw that so Vivian saw that it looks the same. I saw that looking at like this, 5 of the shapes have yeah, I agree, Ismail. So what Ismail saw is what I saw. So when I turned it upside, so currently there are 5 circles that are pushed up, and then circle pushed down. So when I turned it over, when I turned it over, I saw that 5 circles were pushed down and one was pushed up. So it was the opposite. So right now, 5 circles are up and one is down. When I turned it upside down, 5 circles are down and one is up. So it's an interesting visual illusion, and um our brain processes it differently when it's upside down. So now Vivian sees it too now. That's great. So the if anyone sees it, like let me know if you do see it like I do, or if you even if you do see it, if you do turn it upside down and see it the same way, that would be interesting to learn if that's the case. So the human brain, we have a lot of we experience sensations, emotions through vision, breathing, and anger. And system 1 uses a lot of heuristics in the other parts of your brain to produce quick unconscious reactions. So gut instinct is system 1. So if you kind of have the willies about something, like if you're walking in the street and you feel like it's not okay, it that might be your gut instinct. So it's a very trusted source of what you should be doing. If you feel bad about something, like if you feel like you're walking down the street and you're like, oh, I'm kind of scared. Like if you think that something might happen, that's your gut instinct. So it's good to trust it because your gut can be very correct in a lot of cases. And then calculations, thinking things over, slow, deliberate calculations, that's system 2. So they work together. System 1 and 2 work together. So your gut instinct works with the calculate. You're thinking things over to make decisions. So yeah, usually one's in conflict. Usually they're both in conflict. If they're both going together, then that's a good thing in terms of making a decision. But if they're both in conflict, it's very hard to make a decision. But if they're both like, if you say no, if you say no from both, you will probably say no altogether. And then if you say like yes from your gut and then thinking things over, no, you it might be yes or no. Or if you say yes from your gut, yes from thinking things over, it's yes. So yeah, they're both they can be in conflict. You can agree with both, or you could say no with both. So then cognitive biases are things that happen a lot. So confirmation bias, self-serving bias, overconfidence effect, hindsight bias, availability, heuristic, planning fallacy, and framing effects. So people judge good things and bad things in relative terms as gains, losses, status quo. And then people experience both diminishing marginal utility for gains as well as diminishing marginal disutility for losses. People experience loss aversion in that they feel losses much more intensely than gains. So these are a lot of things. Like you could get hired to do a lot of behavioral economic analysis. Losses and shrinking packages. Consumers view any increase in the price as a loss relative to the status quo price they're accustomed to. Framing effects in advertising. Marketing a particular brand of hamburger as 20% fat or as 80% lean. Those make differences in terms of who buys them. Anchoring credit card bills, small minimum payment amounts. That's done a lot. Mental accounting and overpriced warranties. So they sell extended warranties because because a lot of people go for those. And then endowment effect and market transactions. So people put a higher valuation on things that they currently possess or are endowed with than on identical items that they do not own but might purchase. Status quo bias. People favor any option that's presented them as being the default status quo option. So people tend to stick with whatever option is presented as default option. So in this case, the default option is to be part of the organ donor program. So that's why. So these 7 countries: Australia, Belgium, France, Hungary, Sweden, Portugal, Poland. The default option is participation in the organ donor program. So that's why they have such high rates of participation. And then by contrast, the 4 countries with low percentages consenting to be organ donors have organ donation programs. The default option is not participating. So it's good to have the default option of participation. So this is really good to have high participation values. That's a good behavioral economics trick that they use there. And then myopia. Our brains have a hard time conceptualizing the future. People are forced to choose between something that will generate benefits quickly and something that won't yield benefits for a long time. Timing consistency. Tendency to systematically misjudge at the present time what you will want to do in some future time. And then self-control problems with pre-commitments, hide the alarm clock, automatic payroll deductions, salary smoothing, early withdrawal penalties, and weight loss competitions. So neoclassical models go through that people are purely self-interested, and so that's not always true because people give to charity, people obey the law, people buy fair trade products. So doing all of these things, people giving to charity, obeying the law, purchasing the fair trade products, those aren't selfish. These aren't selfish things here. So yeah, these aren't selfish. They are behavioral economics focused. Like people that follow these things are not following the neoclassical economics view because they are doing selfless things. Yeah. So then there was this research program that looked on behavioral biases to nudge them into making better decisions. So A 2010 UK study showed that nudging people towards choices uh, that were better for themselves and others would include paying taxes, attending adult literacy class, increasing saving. This could be manipulation. And they did this to improve the amount of selflessness in society. So, like nudging people. So, if you nudge people to do selfless things, they will do them. Probably. So, like if you nudge them to do something selfless, they will likely do it. That's a good thing like for governments to consider. Governments can consider this, can consider nudging in order to improve society. Because nudging is a good behavioral economics trick to ensure that people are selfless, like behave in a selfless manner. However, it can be manipulative and used for and used for bad purposes, including the government being selfish. So like the government could potentially use nudging to nudge people to do things that would support the government officials. So this does happen. So yeah, nudging can be used in a selfish way if the politicians are nudging people to help the politicians, right? So that does happen. So it's definitely a slippery slope. You got math. So we'll go through this. Then so economic cost, the payment that must be made to obtain and retain the service of resource. So explicit costs would be monetary payments, and then implicit costs would be the value of next best use. So explicit costs are cash. So explicit costs are basically cash costs. And then implicit costs are lost revenue streams or yeah, or lost revenue streams. So like stuff you could have done with the time if you if you could have done if you spent your time doing it instead of what you're doing right now. So those there. So accounting profit is revenue minus explicit costs. Economic profit is accounting profit minus implicit costs. And economic profit is total revenue minus economic costs, total revenue minus explicit costs, minus implicit costs. So fixed costs are costs that do not vary with output. Variable costs are costs that vary with output. Total cost equals total fixed cost plus variable costs. So economies of scale, as the plant size increases, we're gonna minimize the average total cost through more specialization in labor and management. So basically, they become better in doing these roles, and also efficient use of capital. So like lock of waste. Yeah.